These have turned out to be very rushed workshops, but hopefully we'll get through it. Basically, my name's Ian Sutton, I'm a hydrogeologist. I've been working with WASH in Zambia, and what I want to talk about and promote discussion on, that's not your phone, oh, right. Yeah, I'm just trying to connect to the wireless network. So I'm trying to promote discussion on how technical information can be portrayed to non-specialists. And non-specialist in this context relates to engineers working with the water utility in Lusaka and water trust managers. So I'll give you a bit more background on that in a second, okay?
You have to get the technician up.
Okay. So we'll just crack on. So what are we going to do? I'll briefly introduce the context of Lusaka, and then we'll have a group exercise where you're going to be putting yourselves in the shoes of the non-specialist. You're going to be examining these maps, and you're going to be looking at how it's useful to you and how it might be, what data is missing or what else you might need. Then I'm going to talk briefly about Google Earth and QGIS as useful tools of portraying more technical information to non-specialists. Google Earth, we need the internet connection, so we'll see what happens. But this is a very real problem in Lusaka as well, so it's quite relevant. And then hopefully we'll go through some general pointers on how I've found, in my experience, useful things for getting technical information across. So Lusaka, very briefly, I've simplified it down. Central zones, quite gridded settlements and peri-urban areas. These sprawling areas within the city. Lusaka has got a population of about 2 million people. There's big problems with adequate water supply. A lot of these peri-urban areas, they start off as informal settlements, and so you've got the water utility supplying both areas. The water utility is called the Lusaka Water and Sewage Company. Now their network is often outstripped by the rate of urban sprawl, and so in peri-urban areas you also get other water providers. I'm focusing on water trusts. These are separate bodies that have their own supply network. They are linked with the water utility. There is a good bit of interaction between the two, but they're there to sort of fill in the gaps where the water utility is struggling to keep up. Where does WASH, Water and Sanitation for the Urban Poor, where do they come in? They provide support, financial, technical, interaction, capacity building. So I came in as an independent consultant working with WASH to help initially the water utility to ensure that their borehole siting became more successful. It's quite difficult in Lusaka. There's a lot of karst, it's fracture flow, very, you could drill a borehole here and drill a borehole there. This will be dry, and that will give you 15 litres a second. So it's fraught with difficulty. At the same time, you've got in the government, you have underneath the ministry, you've got the Department of Water Affairs. They're now called the Water Resources Management Authority. These guys commission hydrogeologists to do technical reports. So this program, the Groundwater Management Support Program, it's a great program. They've produced these maps. They've also produced groundwater vulnerability maps, recommendations on future sustainable use, detailed technical reports. Now, what a lot of my work has boiled down to is the technical information is there, but how is it transferred over to the guys on the ground? The engineers in the water utility and the managers of the water trusts. So what we'll do now is, if everyone on this side of the table, think of yourselves as a water trust manager. I'll give you some background now so you can picture who you are and what you do. And every person on this side of the room, picture yourself as a water utility engineer, okay? And what we're going to do is look at the maps, imagining yourselves in those shoes, and think, how is that map useful and how might it be relevant to you? So quickly, water trust managers, who are you? You're a local resident in one of these peri-urban areas. You might be a businessman or a businesswoman. You work in a small office. You've got email, you've got slow internet, no hydrogeological knowledge. You might just be able to sort of make sense of a map, and if you're keen, you'll be learning how to use a GPS. You've got 4 boreholes in your area. You have a big supply population, about 80,000 people. You might have 150 points on your network. So it's a significant infrastructure that you're managing. And you're a very busy person. You're dealing with finances, maintenance, customer complaints, managing the people with accountants and secretaries and labourers. So what are your priorities really? Well, you're looking to increase the supply to your network, but you don't want to get boiled down in the nitty-gritty. You don't have time to read through technical reports. If you did, you'd probably have very little interest in it. So how does that, you guys sort of happy with that? You think you can imagine yourself in that role, gather around this map, and maybe come up with a couple of points on how you think it's useful and how you think it might become more relevant to you? Yeah? So if you want to crack on with that, I'll just give the water utility engineers a bit of background on who you guys are. Thanks, Alan. So yeah, in the workshop I was running, we had a bit of a sort of role play where the guys imagine themselves as engineers working for a water utility in Lusaka, and there was another group that imagined themselves as managers of groups called water trusts. Water trusts essentially are filling in the gaps in water supply in sprawling urban areas that the water utility hasn't yet reached. And so in terms of technical information, we used 2 hydrogeological maps from Lusaka and got some feedback on how those maps might be useful and how they could be made more relevant. Some of the points that were raised, what do the green blobs and the black lines mean on the map? Things seemed very complicated on the map, was the general gist of things to the non-hydrogeologist. So then I went on just to explain a little bit about how I found useful software tools in making maps more relevant, namely Google Earth, breaking down the components of the map and placing it on a satellite backdrop where people can immediately recognize their own area, putting borehole locations on that in Google Earth, putting in labels, giving you information on the boreholes, geology, basically breaking down the map so it's less complicated. Similarly with QGIS, the advantage is you don't need an internet connection for that, and then we went through some general pointers as well on portraying technical information to non-specialists. But if you didn't go to the workshop, you missed out.